Monday, September 26th, 2022. This is the last committee of the whole that I will be chairing during my term as councillor. Tonight, we have a regular staged meeting. It is 5 o'clock and we have full quorum of council. No regrets this evening. CAO Morris, I'll ask you to do a roll call, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. We have with us our Deputy Clerk, Nadine Bennett. We have Director Costello, Director McMunn, Director Manhire, our Manager of Economic Development, Julia Crowder, and our Treasurer, Janet Cozile.
Thank you, CAO Morris. I'll start this evening with our land acknowledgement then. On September 26th, 2022, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contributions in the making of the Rito Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all of our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strengths of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. With that, I'll call for amendments to the agenda this evening. I see none. Thank you. I'll ask for a disclosure of monetary interest. I also see none. If that changes, please identify it at the time immediately prior to the item being discussed on the agenda. We have no delegations tonight. We do have one set of minutes dating, sorry, two sets of minutes. Nope, 3 sets of minutes dating from July 25th, August 22nd, and September 12th of Committee of the Whole. Do I have a mover and a seconder to receive those minutes, please? Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Alfred. All those in favor? Thank you. CAO and Director's reports. I understand we have 2. CAO Morris, I will start with you, if that's okay.
Absolutely, thank you. So I have 2 items this evening. The first is an update on the Confederation Drive River crossing. As committee will know, the consultant that we hired to navigate the municipal class environmental assessment has completed that work and have come up with recommendations. So they're essentially finished their part. So the next step is there are 3 things to be done. One is to file what's called a notice of study completion, a fairly academic exercise. The next 2 are to agree with the preferred option. And then the third and final would be to decide on the type of crossing. So at this point in this term of council, staff felt it was prudent to do a couple of things. One is to advance the discussions on the redevelopment of the former water treatment plant to get some insight into what that may look like. We have engaged with the preferred proponent, very early stages of those discussions. And secondly, is to look for potential funding sources for a crossing. So we're proposing to bring that back as part of the 2023 budget process and something for the new council to consider. So that project at this point has been placed in abeyance and will come back once the new council is elected.
Thank you, CAO Morris. I see a hand up from Councillor Brennan, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. This is part of the our strategic plan. When we started, the bridge has been closed for 7 years. So I agree that the next council should decide what to do with the bridge. But yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't reached a decision which is what we had committed to do in our strategic plan.
Thank you. Any other questions, or CAO Morris, would you like to respond?
Yeah, just briefly, Madam Chair. I certainly understand that a decision was would have been best, during this term of council. But I think what's important is that there were a lot of moving parts with this project, and all the foundational work has been laid by this council. You've done everything that you could possibly do to get it to a decision point, and I would just stress that. Whether a decision is made with this council or early in the new term of council, it will not expedite the building of the bridge. We need to, consider the cost, whatever those costs may be, in the context of the 2023 budget. We all know from the recently approved asset management plan that we have a tremendous number of assets that need renewal. We will be bringing forward a list of capital projects through the 2023 budget, and this one will form part of that dialogue that the new council will have. So a lot of foundational work has been done, and you've set the stage for that decision to be made.
Councillor McGuire, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, CEO Morris. I've already expressed my disappointment in the Class EA that we've got, but it doesn't have anything in it about the abutments or the supports. So I'm wondering, what information are we going to need to get on that? And are we getting any information on what's underneath the current bridge or a future bridge in the meantime, so we can make that decision? Because to me, that's a big part of this that's hasn't been decided yet, or we don't have any information on.
So through the chair, yeah, that's a really good point, and that's one of the questions that we took back to the consultant. They did confirm that their cost estimate included new concrete abutments. It did not include resurfacing a new concrete abutment with either original stone or something that would make it look authentic. So that would be an additional cost. The other unknown is whether some structural testing of the existing abutments would support a new structure. That's going to be entirely dependent on the type of structure. If it's a pedestrian structure, we might get away with the existing abutments subject to a structural assessment. If it's a vehicular, much heavier bridge, chances are it may not. So good question, and that will form part of the detailed design, and we will do some investigative work before it's brought back. But we will need a budget allocation to do that. I believe the estimate was somewhere less than 20,000, but it will be a budget item that we'll have to look at.
Thank you, CEO Morris. Are there any other questions? Going once? Oh, yep, Councillor Alfred.
Yeah, I think all of us are join Councillor Brennan in his comments about our disappointment that we aren't able to make the decision. If we had had everything 3 months ago, we would have felt comfortable doing so, but this close to the election, and now having all the information that we have, minus what Councillor McGuire has stated, I think we're all disappointed that we weren't able to do it. But again, this close to the election, we don't any longer feel that it's our decision to make. It's for the next council. So I think this was the right decision for this council to leave it for the next.
Thank you, Councillor Alfred. All right, for real, last call. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. CEO Morris, we'll move on for an update from Julia Crowder, please.
Actually, Madam Chair, I have one more item.
Oh, my apologies.
Okay, thank you. So this one, ironically, is about Ms. Crowder. I'm delighted to say that Julia passed her certification exam, and now she can use the designation of Certified Economic Developer. She earned that designation through a very exhaustive studying and exam process. It was quite an intense exam with an oral presentation and written an essay writing part of it. So anyway, she achieved that, and we just got news this morning that she passed, and she can now use the designation in her title. So congratulations to Julia.
Perfect. Thank you. Congratulations, Julia. I see lots of clapping all around. Julia, with that, we'll move on to you for your own update, please.
Thanks, CEO Morris, and through you, Madam Chair. I have a few updates for committee today and a few announcements. The first one is the website project. So the redevelopment of the town's website is underway. The project team has successfully drafted their site plan and design layout, and we're looking to finalize that with the consultants in the next coming week. The next steps will be to actually start building the website, go through training for content, and then building the actual content on the website, which is about a 3-month process. And once the content is up and drafted in the back end of the website, there'll be an opportunity for council and staff to review as part of the review process. The project is slated currently to go live at the end of February, which is February 28th. However, if we're able to get content up and approvals in a more streamlined manner, we may have the ability to launch the website in January as well. So staff and the project team is working really hard to get this underway and launched to the community. Center Street redevelopment, the Center Street visioning and design RFP closed on Friday. We received 3 submissions for proposals, and the evaluation team will meet tomorrow. And then we'll look to meet with any potential proponents on Thursday, and a report will come to committee on October 11th to award tender for that project. The Public Arts Master Plan Forum is this Wednesday from 6 to 8 at the Station Theatre. So we hope members of council and the community will be there to participate. This is an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on the development of that master plan, which will guide public installations within the community for the future. The next one is the Back on Beckwith event that's happening on Saturday. The DVAs worked really hard to plan this major event, and will celebrate the completion of the construction on Beckwith Street. It will also provide the unveiling event for the Parkette, Artscape Parkette. So we're really excited about that. It starts at 12 and will go till 10. And then on Sunday, October 2nd, the Heritage House Museum is hosting the 3rd annual Fall Fun Day, which will include games, tours, wagon rides, and inflatables. It was a really great event last year, so we hope to see everyone there. That's it.
Thank you, Julia. Councillor McGuire with a question, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks a lot, Julia. Congratulations. I'm wondering with the website, when will Speak Out Smith Falls come down, and when will we get the full functionality out of the e-meeting software integrated with the website?
So that will be on the launch. So as part of that development process, we'll be looking at all those modules and setting it up and getting all the information in. So when we go live, the website will be fully functional to the public. And then we'll look at taking down Speak Up Smith Falls once the website is up there. And so we'll be looking at setting up a town page for town projects on the website that will look very similar to Speak Up Smith Falls. It will just all be integrated into the website rather than having 2 platforms for information.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Brennan.
Just to say that there's a barbecue too at the Heritage House on Sunday, and I'll be working it.
That's as part of the Family Fun Day. So thanks, Jay.
Perfect. Thanks very much. All right. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Julia. We'll, oh, actually, I don't think we're going to hear from you again tonight. This is it for you. Have a good evening. All right, moving on. We have no in-camera issues tonight, so we're going to move straight into priority items. The first tonight is an award of tender for Hillcrest Cemetery's Columbarium with Mr. Manhire. Art, if you'd like to give a summary on changes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what we have before council is an award of tender for the Columbarium. We're running out of space for columbarium niches at Hillcrest Cemetery. We did put out a tender earlier in the year, and we had submissions that were all significantly over budget. So we brought it back, revised the scope and the design, and received the quotes that we have here. We are recommending, staff are recommending that we go with not the lowest bid, but the second lowest bid, And that is strictly a question of availability. That unit is available to be installed almost immediately, as soon as we can build the base. The unit on the lowest bid is not available until the spring. So the concern is that we will run out of space before it is available, and we won't be able to provide that service.
Thank you, Art. Any questions from council? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Alfred.
No, I support staff's recommendation for the Columbarium. I do have one question, and perhaps I don't need an answer right now, but I was wondering about an update on the progress of loosening the rules over the cemetery reserve and the municipality's ability to utilize those funds. I think CIO Marsh, you had several conversations with upper levels to see if that was going to change.
Through the chair. So yeah, we lobbied for changes. We got, I would say, peripheral changes to the real issue. So we can borrow from the reserve, but we have to pay it back, which is probably something we would do anyway, because when we manage reserves, we draw them down and we replenish them. This one's a bit more restrictive. So we're still working on getting the province to treat the perpetual care reserve much as giving us authority to treat it as we would treat any other reserve. We're not quite there yet. But I mean, this purchase, whether we borrow it from the perpetual care or from our capital reserve, it makes little difference at this point. So we still have some work to do.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, this is the perfect example of how we would use that, or could use that reserve if and when those rules change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions tonight? Nope. I see one thumb up, other thumbs up or nods. There we go. All right, moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on. Item number 2 on the agenda is the review of committees and boards report with Deputy Clerk Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council members, tonight I present report 2022-134, respecting review of committees and boards. This is further to the direction that was provided by Council at the July 11th, 2022 meeting. Staff composed a summary of the boards and committees that Council has to date, which is attached to the report as attachment 1. And it details the dates of the last meeting, number of meetings in 2021 and 2022, the number of vacancies, and notes from the staff resource. After a review of the current list that we have, and just in consideration that we are approaching the end of this term of council, staff recommend that this current council receive the report as information. And it's recommended that the results of this report be shared with the elected 2022-2026 council for review prior to advertisement and appointment of the new term of boards and committees. This time period will allow staff to do a full review of terms of reference for each municipal board and committee. The newly elected council could be encouraged to undertake the process to establish a new strategic plan and determine the priorities for their term. And the resultant priorities will inform the decisions related to the number and complexion of committees. So tonight we seek your direction. As noted in the report, option 1 is to receive the report, and that appointments would be presented to the 2022-2026 council as a priority report following the inaugural meeting to seek direction prior to advertising for citizen appointments.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. I see a couple hands up. We'll start with Councillor Brennan, followed by Councillor Allen, please.
Yeah, thanks. I support staff's recommendation. And I think part of it too in the report was there's a couple of statutory appointments, i.e. the Police Services Board and our seats on Leonard County Council. We're not going to be reviewing the terms of reference or anything like that on those. So they should be appointed post haste after the election. but yes, thanks for your work so far. And the new council can have a look at this list that you've compiled and make a determination on membership and that sort of thing. But those two boards, I think the hospital board as well should be included in that. But we'll do that as soon as possible after the election. And then the rest of these we can dig down and do terms of reference and all that kind of thing after the election. Should I come back, or should any of us come back? So.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. I think that's a fair point, and I'm sure Nadine will make lists to confirm what our statutory boards are and bring those forward in the new year. Lorraine, you had questions?
And not questions, just I guess I just want to, I'm hoping that we continue to have a council representative on the Arts and Culture Council Board. That's a newer board, but it's one that's doing good work as far as I'm concerned. And I think that it's something that's great for our community. The other one that I've sat on in my 12 years is the Friends of the Cat Trail. I don't attend all the board meetings, but I try to get to as many as I can. And the Cataractway Trail people that are on that with me have been very good at coming down and helping us clean our portion of the trail. And they're presently working on putting signage so that people will find, the path for biking and for walking. So those are the two that I see missing.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. I'm sure Nadine has captured those in her minutes. Nadine, do you want to respond to that, or we'll just make note?
Yeah, I'll just make note of those two and make sure that they're included on our list.
Thank
The
you.
Arts and Culture Council is there. And I'll check on the other one to make sure it's there as well. The Cat Trail, I believe, is there, but I'll make sure.
Thank you, Nadine. I'll move on to Councillor McGuire, followed by Councillor Allen, but I will acknowledge Mayor Pankow and Councillor McKenna's hands were up.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks a lot, Nadine. I know it's a busy time of year for you with the election, and we brought this up at the end of the term. My preference would be to make some decisions on this. I don't think I would have been prepared to make any decisions on it 4 years ago because I wouldn't have had the experience. If there's a committee that hasn't reported to council in the last 4 years, hasn't met since COVID, councillors are always free to join any committee they want on their own, but I don't know why we'd need to add that extra layer of appointing a formal representative from council to it. So I'd be ready to cut some of the easy ones, but I'm not seeing consensus for that just yet.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. I'll circle back to that question at the end after we go through a first round of comments. Okay. Councillor Alfred.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would echo Councillor McGuire's statements. If they haven't had a meeting and we've had no reports in 4 years, I think that's low hanging fruit. I certainly encourage the next council to look at all the terms of references. If and again, we've discussed this before. I see just in my own case, Downtown Business Association, number of meetings that did not include any of the Back on Beckwith or the Great Excavate subcommittees that I was a part of as a board member on there. So I think there's probably some more to the story, and I think Councillor McGuire is right. We are uniquely able to determine right now where, if a new council starting over would not have the experience that all of us have had. So I would be prepared to do at least some work on this now. I think some of it is low hanging fruit.
Thank you, Councillor Alfred. Mayor Pankow.
Yeah, I agree with the comments made so far. We've seen, especially with those who've not met, I think there probably is some appetite here to maybe disband a certain committee or not have our membership on there if needed. Two I want to highlight, certainly is the Housing Advisory Committee, which of course emerged from the Housing Task Force and has met 20 times over the last couple of years, and as of last week, pretty much wrapped up its mandate and implemented 17 recommendations of the task force. but the work really isn't finished. I see still some role on the housing front, and especially on the affordable housing front. Although the deep dive that this committee has taken is no longer required. But I also look at the work of the Racism and Discrimination Task Force, and the number of recommendations there that are still under development, with staff leading the way on that, as well as ongoing events like our event this Friday for Truth and Reconciliation. So I'm wondering, and maybe staff can do some investigation here, but I think there's still a role for an equity and inclusion diversity committee that could focus on housing, could focus on food insecurity, could focus on equality, inclusion within our community. So that's something I would like to see, whether we make that agreement here and have staff go ahead and do a terms of reference. But I think there's definitely an ongoing role for a group like this.
Thank you, Mayor Panko. We'll come back to that thought as well and move on to comments from Councillor McKenna.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I agree with Councillor Brennan. There are some mandatory there's some positions we just need to fill or the next council will as soon as possible after the inaugural meeting. That said, I did have a question for the Deputy Clerk. I was just a little confused. In your report, you talk about where appropriate, wait till the new council creates the strategic plan, and the plan will inform the decisions around membership and complexity of committees. But then we go on to say, that under option 1, the new council will be presented boards and committees immediately following the inaugural meeting. So is it before they do the strategic plan, or is it right after the inaugural meeting that they're going to tackle this? Or is it a little of both? So I just wasn't quite sure.
Madam Chair, through you. Yes, so certainly there's two parts to that. Following the inaugural meeting, staff would bring forward a report, and during that, or in that report, we would share the statutory boards that need to be appointed right away, as well as the list of committees and boards for their direction. But during that report, we will also note that they will be undertaking that strategic review, which will inform, their priorities for the next 4 years. And they can consider some of the boards and committees on the list of if they wish to proceed with them or not as part of their strategic review. So you are correct, it's twofold. There are some that will need automatic appointment following the inaugural meeting, because we will need council representation at those boards and committees, but the other ones, staff would review that list with them, and they could determine from there if they wish to proceed with appointment or wait till following their strategic review.
Thank you very much. That clarifies that. And if I may, Madam Chair, just there's 30 of these entities now, without Councillor Alfred's point about subcommittees and task forces that spin off of these. So we're probably up around 40 or plus of these entities. So if we could, if there was an appetite tonight to some of that low-hanging fruit, I think that was described, then I would also have an appetite for that to help just some of the easier ones. But if not, we can wait, or the next council can tackle it.
Okay, well, with that, to go back to our little parking lot of items, perhaps to start, I'll just ask for a show of hands about whether or not council has a willingness to discuss this in detail tonight and provide some direction to staff. All right, we see a majority of hands up on that one. Okay, so looking at the attachments, I think what I'm going to do is very quickly run through attachment 2 of the report, and one by one we'll name off the committee, and Nadine can clarify whether or not it's a statutory committee if she's knowledgeable, and then whoever the council appointee is to that committee can provide some feedback on whether or not it needs a rewrite on its terms of reference, if it's still relevant, or if perhaps it can be recommissioned into something else or cut completely. Councillor McKenna, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. That would be one way to proceed. I was thinking more that we just give direction to staff with the criteria rather than go through them tonight. And then staff will come back with a report on which ones didn't meet since the last time and which ones. So I thought, I didn't know we were going to do them all, but it's up to the group, I guess. Thank you.
Fair enough. My only concern with that, Councillor McKenna, is that there are some committees that, in particular that I sit on. The CDC is a great example where it hasn't met pre-COVID. You'll see the explanation from Judy attached as to why. I don't think that in and of itself is reason to cut the committee. Do you know what I mean? And I think perhaps some of the context that councillors can provide this evening as part of that discussion quickly, let's keep the content short, but can provide some additional context for, whether or not that committee still has value and merit. Okay, so unless I see an objection from council, perhaps we'll run through that list. Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I have an objection. I mean, I'm not ready to, this is like almost like a procedural bylaw, and this is a big task. And, we're like, how many more meetings we have left here? And we're gonna saddle the next council with our decision tonight. I don't agree with it. I'll participate, but I don't agree with it.
Thank you. All right, unless I see a show of hands that is supportive of Councillor Brennan's position, then I will proceed. Seeing none. Okay, so to start, Airport Commission is our first board or committee. Nadine, is this a statutory committee?
We are in partnership with Montague Township with this. So the council representative on this is Mayor Panko.
Thank you. Sean, do you have any context for this? Is it a required committee?
Well, we've had numerous meetings with the Flying Club and negotiating a new airport operating agreement. And part of those discussions have circled around the need for some government body. So, and CEO Morris may want to speak in as well if he's had other insights. But to my understanding, we will need some form of governance body, but I don't think they'll have a significant role once the new agreement's in place.
Thank you. CEO Morris, any additional context?
No, I think the mayor covered it. I think it's needed, but with a reduced role.
Thank you. Okay, so a revision of the terms of reference, otherwise it stays. The second committee is the CDC Advisory Board. This is a non-statutory committee, and I'm the staff lead, apologies, council lead on this committee. Like I said earlier, we have not met since pre-COVID, which I think is unfortunate. And despite Judy's great efforts to try and corral us all together, I think that there can be great value, especially given the need for childcare within the community. I would highly recommend that it continue to operate with a greater pull perhaps from its parent membership of the services, both the before and after program and the CDC as part of its membership, because I think that's where you would get a lot of drive and passion for creating some meaningful change within that committee. I would recommend a rewrite of the terms of reference, but I think it's still valuable as it is. Any contrary opinion? Nope, thumbs up. Okay, perfect. I like this method. Planning Advisory Committee. I believe this is a statutory committee. Nadine's nodding her head, so it will stay. Councillor McGuire, you're going to make my life painful tonight.
Yeah, Child Development Center. I don't know that we've got a report from it. It takes staff time to operate it. It's not providing any value to me as a counselor, and I don't support keeping it. So to me, that's one of the low-hanging fruits.
Okay. So to be fair, the reason you haven't had a staff report from it is because we have not met, because our membership has never had quorum for a meeting. And I think that speaks more towards the membership that we have appointed to that committee than it does to the value that the committee could have to council and to the town service.
And I think a big part of this exercise for me is if the community is not engaged to fill these positions with strong candidates, Why are we putting it on the burden on staff to try to work with people and try to schedule meetings and putting all of that time and effort in? I just don't see the value in it. If there was pressing issues and things were moving great, but if we've essentially had no committee meetings over the last term, then what value will there be in meetings over the next term? I'm not sure.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. So with that, perhaps I'll call for a straw vote. Those in favor of cutting it as low-hanging fruit, please raise your hand. 2. Okay, it stays for now. And that's not to say, of course, that council can't make another decision once new term takes over. These are just simply to provide some direction to staff in the short term. Okay, sorry, we were in the middle of item number 3, the Planning Advisory Committee. This is a statutory advisory committee. Unless there's someone with a serious pressing issue that they'd like to discuss about it. Yep, okay. Councillor Alfred.
Just in terms of, I'm not sure how old the terms of reference are in that one. And we had discussed at some point of moving, and we're going to talk about it later, but I guess I'll talk about it now, about moving property standards into the planning advisory portfolio. So yes, planning advisory has to stay, but the terms of reference surrounding it definitely need to change, particularly if property standards appeal might be moved to that body.
Point taken. Thank you, Councillor Alfred. I think it's worth noting that terms of reference will have to change, but besides that, I think staff has their direction to continue to fill it. And that takes number 6 off my list. Thank you, Wendy. Number 4, the Downtown Business Association. Wendy, I'll let you speak to this one. Can you confirm, though, is it a statutory committee?
It's enshrined in bylaw, so I don't know if you call that statutory or not. I guess you could interpret it that way. Nadine, do you agree, or?
I'll be honest with you, I need to look into that one a bit more. But yes, we do have a DBA, so we would need a DBA board, but I'd need to look into more of the statutory requirement on that.
Yeah, it was a provincial mandate in 1982. I don't think that mandate has changed, and that's where it comes from, the Municipal Act. So there's no lack of meeting, there's no lack of activity. I can see I cannot foresee in the future that you won't need one, not to say that there couldn't be changes. And the terms of reference for that one are reasonably new, probably in the last 3 years.
Thank you. Show of hands, those in favor of keeping the BIA? Yes, thank you. Okay. Rec Hall of Fame is the next one. I don't believe this is a statutory committee. No. Who's our council rep on this?
So there actually is no council representation on this. The staff resource, it does fall under community services, which is Director Manhire. And I think it does note in the listing there that they haven't met. That was something that was covered by a previous employee. So I know Director Manhire is on the meeting tonight if he has any further comment, Madam Chair.
Mr. Manhire, quickly, what was their original mandate and is it still relevant?
I think the group needs to take a look at their terms of reference, and I have had discussions with the chair of that group to do just that. So it may be worthwhile to kind of see the direction that the committee members have and bring that back to a future council to see.
Thank you, Mr. Manhire. Consensus from the group? Yes, nodding heads. Okay. Property standards we have already spoken about in previous committee of the whole discussions. Chris, I see your hand. I'll come to you. In previous committee of the whole discussions, we have talked about merging that with planning advisory board and given staff direction to look at doing so as part of the new term of council. So I think we have dealt with that one. Mr. McGuire, your hand.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to confirm, sometimes I think we've decided something in a meeting and then my understanding of it's different afterwards, or the minutes are different afterwards. CO Morris, do we need to give any direction on putting property standards into PAC, or is that confirmed good? It's already, the wheels are turning.
Through the chair, my understanding is that was an option to fulfill the mandate of property standards. So it hasn't been endorsed by council. So I would suggest when we bring these forward to the new council, we incorporate it into the terms of reference, but it hasn't been authorized at this point.
Thank you. Councilor Brennan, I'm sorry, I am unsure if this is a new hand up or your hand is still up. It's a new one?
Yeah, I mean, the Property Standards Committee, they, until recently, as we all know, haven't met for years. So, as I said before, I think we can defer that for the next council to decide. I don't see them meeting anytime soon, and you know, I'm uncomfortable making these decisions tonight at this point. But anyway.
Thank you, Jay. Your objection is noted. I believe, and Nadine can confirm, but I believe statutory or Property Standards Committee is a statutory requirement under the OBC. So one way or the other, we do have to appoint a committee of some form. But I think at this point, the direction is to provide some options to the new council as to how to fulfill that role. Mr. McGuire?
So we're deferring it because we need to research the options more. I just, to me, I'm comfortable giving the direction on it.
Clerk Costello?
Thank you. Yeah, CAO Morris was quite right. When the bylaw comes forward, I mean, it's going to be council's decision on how they want to fill that role. Having a property standards committee is a legislative committee, but how council decides to fill it, whether it would be just from general membership through an ad in the paper for citizen appointments, or whether it be through an existing council. So those options would be laid out in the council report on how they wish to fill the property standards committee vacancies. So we will have options available when the bylaw comes forward.
And to be clear, Carrie, that'll happen under the new council, correct?
The hope was to have it before this council, but I'm actually I'm happy to say that we're getting some public comment feedback still. Unhappy to say that I had hoped it would be sooner, but most likely it will be the new council.
Thank you. Wendy, I see your hand, but before I come to you, Councillor McGuire, can you confirm that answers your question? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Alford.
Just on that, and I just want to be clear, the Property Standards Committee hears appeals to the property standards. So that's why they meet rarely. But in our experience now, having gone through one of those, the hope was that putting the property standards in with a committee that meets regularly, that has some exposure to that type of application of rules, that could be done sooner than later. And again, it could another council or a new council decide that? Yes, but this, to me, if one comes up in the meantime or early in their term, that would, I think, properly go. The best body to manage that would be Planning Advisory.
Thank you. Okay, so just to be clear, property standards stays. It's going to get a terms of reference rewrite in part through the rewriting of the property standards bylaw, which Carrie is in consultation over right now. And then that final report will be presented to the new council as part of the advertisement and assignment of membership to these boards. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I think I see nodding heads. Thank you. Next board is the Smiths Falls Drug Strategy Committee. I don't believe this is a statutory committee. Who is our council rep on there today? Lorraine, do you want to provide any commentary?
Yeah, this is a committee that started across the county. All municipalities were part of it. We had, well, 12 years ago, I guess, the first year I was a councillor, I went to a number of large forums that the health unit ran. And at that time, the biggest issue was children and drugs and school use and all those kinds of things that we felt needed to be addressed. Since then, we had our own Smiths Falls Municipal Drug Strategy Committee, and Ron Stronsky and his wife have helped empty drug boxes that we have. We have 3, and they've been used very, very well. The committee, in my opinion, is very useful. It met regularly, and we have the health unit is sort of our resource to that, the ladies that run the health unit. But also we had a community office, our community officer came regularly as well. Yeah, I think it's a very useful committee.
Thank you, Lorraine. Certainly I've seen that it's provided value for a long time. You know, even just community outreach, somebody can call and notify the committee that there's matters that need to be taken care of and disposed of accordingly. And it does provide a great public health and safety component. That said, I understand that the health unit has gone through some pretty significant staffing changes as of late. So perhaps staff could reach out to, sorry, I've got a lot of background noise tonight. Perhaps staff could reach out to the committee or rather the health unit and confirm whether or not they still have the staffing available to provide assistance. Councillor McKenna, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The health unit is with the new medical officer of health and the modernization that the province is having discussions with. Their role will probably evolve over the next year. And so if Councillor Allen likes, I can bring that to the health unit's attention rather than staff and find out if there's any plan to rejuvenate it or modernize it, or I don't think mothball is the right word. So I could work with Lorraine to find some of those answers. But I suspect we leave it in for now and wait till Dr. Lee has an opportunity to do an evaluation of her new health unit.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. That's great context. I'll turn to Councillor McGuire for comment, and then I'll ask for a show of hands as to whether or not there's an interest to keep it for now with that additional information to come through from Councillor Allen and Councillor McKenna. Chris?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one. I think it's a really important committee and it's done really important work. Does it need a council representative? Because it sounds like between the community services officer and the health unit, it's a grassroots community group. Is it something we need to be appointing a member of council to sit on? That's the question I'm bringing to these, more than the value of the committee. I hope the committee keeps operating, but do we need to be appointing a council member to sit on it?
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Brennan followed by Councillor Alfred.
Yeah, the answer to that question is yes.
I'm sorry, Councillor Brennan, can you just clarify what question you're responding to?
Councillor McGuire said that we need to appoint a committee, council member to that committee, and the answer is yes.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Alfred?
I see it the same as Councillor McGuire. This seems to me to be, and they have done wonderful work, but this seems to me to be a public health issue. And I don't know that having a council rep adds or takes away. Now, that doesn't, no insult meant to all the work that Councillor Lorraine Allen has done. But to me, this is a public health issue. And if there's a grassroots organization that wants to work with public health, then this is their purview.
Thank you. Perhaps I'll just ask for some clarity from Nadine. Nads, can you confirm, we appointed the Drug Strategy Committee ourselves as the town. It's our terms of reference, and we were the party that pulled together the other community agencies, or is this something that we sit on that's hosted or organized through the Board of Health? And perhaps Lorraine knows too.
Yeah, no, we met at our arena because it was the largest one many years ago, and we met all of us, all of the different people, the different regions and counties and reps from the police board, from the public health unit, and educators, because not only is it just a public health issue, it's educating our teachers and how they can deal with this issue in the schools and helping children deal with it. it's not just something that public health is concerned about. Educators are very concerned about it as well, and our parents. We've had parents sit on the board because they're very passionate and concerned about the situation for their children. I think it would be a shame to not have it continue. I think it does good work.
Thanks, Lorraine. Nadine?
So just to follow up on Councillor Allen and your question, Chair Dwyer, is that we do seek appointments for this. So this is something we advertise for following inaugural to seek members of the public to be appointed. And then part of that is a member from the public health unit that is appointed as well as she's right, Constable Tompkins from the Smith Falls Police Service is the liaison from the police board or police department.
Thank you. Carrie?
Just to quickly follow up. So I just a quick search in our bylaw index. So back in 2011 was when this group initiated, and we do have terms of reference on file. So we'd be happy to dig those out and circulate if you'd like.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that if we made the decision to sorry, I'm just collecting my thoughts. If we made the decision to decommission this, there isn't anybody else who would be responsible for picking up the committee as it exists today. It's not hosted by anybody else. So we would have to make the decision to either change the committee, go around, Arlo, change the committee so that it doesn't have a council rep, but could still be hosted through the town, perhaps with a staff lead, or alternatively, we work collaboratively with the health unit to perhaps take on the leadership role on this. Does council have a suggestion for how we should proceed with this? I mean, a straw hands, I don't think we're going to cut it. It doesn't sound like there isn't consensus to cut it, but there also doesn't seem to be consensus about, accepting it with a modified terms. Councillor McKenna, please help.
Well, I was just going to go back to my original suggestion is that we have a conversation with the health unit about their plans. This isn't the only one. There's several municipal drug strategies across, and some municipalities are just getting into it now because of the opioid crisis, and they wish they had one earlier. So whether each town needs their own or should they be countywide, I think the health unit could provide some direction. So I would leave it alone and have that conversation with the health unit.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Hands up for deferring a decision on this one. Thank you. Okay. Moving on, the Heritage House Museum Advisory Board. Nadine, is this a statutory committee?
No, well, not to my understanding, this is an advisory board. And I should speak to that. Just I know Manager Crowder isn't on the call anymore, or on the meeting anymore, but she, I know that they are undertaking a review of their terms of reference, and I know Councillor Brennan is the council rep, so perhaps he could speak to that, but they are reviewing terms of reference at this point in time.
Thank you.
We are, and the Heritage House is actually going through a strat plan right now, so it's very exciting times. We own the Heritage House Museum, and it's run by our staff, and I think it's important to keep that advisory board who have committed volunteers on it, so they provide input. And so I think it's essential to keep it. I mean, really.
Thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So understanding that the terms of reference is being rewritten and will come back, the future council can take a look at that and determine whether or not it has value meriting appointments. Next is the Transportation Advisory Committee. I don't believe this is a statutory committee. Nope. Who's the council representative on that one? Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I'm on that. And actually, it's probably been, I'm going to say 2 years, because there was no council rep on it. And so I was voluntold to do it. But I enjoy it, and it's a group of citizens. And actually, we have a meeting coming up later in the month And so what they do is if they look at different traffic concerns. So you know, a bigger stop sign. We need a pedestrian crossing here, and staff or Vanessa Bernicke's on it, and now Deputy Chief, new Deputy Chief is on it, and a group of citizens. So they provide input, and any decisions that are made, of course, comes back to council. But I think it's a great committee, and I think it should be kept.
Thank you. I'll call for, Councillor Alfred and then Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think having watched many of them and seeing how much staff is actually the one who moves, is usually the individual that moves anything forward or most things forward. I would suggest that perhaps the Transportation Committee subject matter could be best managed by staff now. I think this was something that was formed a long time ago, and perhaps we didn't have as much staff or they weren't as involved, but I've watched many of them, and to me it seems that that our staff do most of the work, and any issues would be given to them to handle anyway and bring back recommendations. So I just think it's possibly evolved to the point where we no longer need the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Alfred. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've watched a lot of Transportation Advisory Committee meetings. I think, I'm not sure when it was first started, but in this day and age, there's really a robust consultation process when any time a major transportation, any kind of infrastructure project's taken on. So there's public information sessions. There's all kinds of opportunities for the public to give their input on big projects. For the smaller projects where people want the speed wagon put in their backyard or in their street, or the Chambers Street speed radar thing installed, I just see the committee being an unnecessary middle step in that process. I'm comfortable with it going directly to staff. Staff checks it against what the best practices are for the transportation guidelines for Ontario, and then it comes to council if it needs to come to council. But if anything, we've delegated more of that authority to staff through the stop sign stuff we did a few months ago. So I'm not seeing value in the advisory role of the committee, and I'd be okay cutting it for next term.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call for a show of hands then. Those in favor of cutting the Transportation Advisory Committee. Okay. So it goes. The next two, I believe, are statutory committees, the Police Service Board and the Public Library Board. Nadine, can you advise if either of them are up for having their terms of reference rewritten at this point?
Not that I know of. I can't speak to the Police Services Board, but the Public Library Board, Councillor Allen, Councillor Allen is the council representative. Perhaps she could speak to that if she's aware of anything.
Thank you. Lorraine, do you know of any changes that are forthcoming to that or a need for change?
I missed some of the meeting that we had last week, but I know that we talked about that. And so I haven't been brought up to speed on it, but I know that there are just some things that they're looking at. It's not really big changes. They're just different ways of doing things that are going to be better for the library. The last thing that we were talking about is we're having a film in the library. And of course, that's never happened before. So we're looking at how to do that. And I think it's been all resolved. So there will be a Christmas film, and it will be shown in the library. So that should be very, very nice. That's fun.
Thank you, Lorraine. I'm also just thinking, and perhaps Nadine or Carrie can confirm for me, but my understanding is both under the Police Act and the Public Libraries Act, that those terms of references would be the responsibility of each of those separate boards and would not necessarily be something that are ratified by municipal council. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so really it's not up to us to make changes to those or mothball them at this point. So unless I see objection from council or further comment, we'll move on to the Municipal Heritage Committee. I see none. Okay, Municipal Heritage Committee. This is a statutory, non-statutory committee. Once it's there, it becomes a statutory committee, but we do not necessarily have to appoint one. Do we have 2 council reps on this one? I believe
Yes.
so. Okay, Lorraine, maybe perhaps I'll let you go first. Is the committee working on a revised terms of reference at this point?
Well, we've been, yes. The short answer is yes. We've been looking at a lot of different things. One of the things that I think we've done most significantly in the last couple of years is starting to identify the properties that should have been designated many, many years ago. And we're trying to get caught up on those properties. I think it's a very, very important committee. I think it does good work. It's also responsible. We do a lot of heritage education for the community and visitors, the walking tours that they do, and we try to give advice on how to keep heritage properties looking like a heritage property. It's one of the roles that we play. Go ahead, Chris, you can add anything if you.
Through the
Councillor
chair,
McGuire.
this committee's been going for a long time. It's actually got one of the newest terms of references of all the committees on the list. So there's always been a continuous improvement mentality with the chair and the members, and I think it's been operating well. I think with the Heritage Conservation District coming up, it's going to be especially important. And as Lorraine said, to getting the bylaws updated, I think if there was one thing to have dedicated professional planning staff with the committee the way it used to have would be a real asset, but we're using a lot of consultant help right now, and that's getting stuff done. So
Thank you. Okay. I see a thumb up. Any other thumbs up? Yes. Okay. It stays. Next, we have the CIP Evaluation Committee. This is a non-statutory committee. Our council lead on this, I believe, is Councillor McGuire.
So this one's going through a major overhaul with the CIP rewrite. One of the draft plans that's being proposed wouldn't have a committee and would just have staff making the decisions. I wouldn't like to see that. I haven't seen the expertise on the staff side of the table for taking that up. I think this is something we need somebody from the accessibility community, heritage, downtown business association, a community representative and a council representative. And this conversation is going to happen though when we get the CIP report back, and I think that's in the next week or two. So not much point getting into it now.
Thank you. So perhaps I'll call for consensus to defer this until we get that new report. Yep. Okay. Moving on. Economic Development Advisory Board. I don't believe this is a statutory committee. Our council lead on this is who?
So Mayor Panko and Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. Sean, do you want to provide any context for why this committee has not met?
Sure. We had met prior to COVID and the early stages of COVID. And at that time, a lot of it was about providing what we could do to support our business community. But since then, I think it's probably more, we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have our DBA, and I think they will provide the ongoing consistency when it comes to relationships with our business community. And I could see potentially needs for a task force or something different times. So should a need arise, but as for an ongoing role for EDAC, I don't think it's really there.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, do you have a counterpoint to offer?
No, I agree.
Thank you. Okay, those in favor of cutting the committee? Off it goes. Thank you. Next is the Housing Advisory Committee. Mayor Panko has kind of already talked to this about providing a revised terms of reference. Sean, do you think a revised terms of reference would also be able to accommodate the Racism and Discrimination Task Force and the Accessibility Committee into more of a social justice committee? Or do you think that those three committees should be standalone?
Well, no, I think there's a role for a combined group dealing with equity, inclusion, diversity, accessibility, poverty reduction, food security, housing affordability. And I think the terms of reference would define the the right people, the people we want to make sure we have representation from, which would probably be a fit of a combination of what we have right now between these three different committees. So I certainly see an ongoing role. It's just a question of maybe a broader mandate for this group to challenge themselves with.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would just note accessibility committees are mandated for communities over 10,000 people. So yeah, I agree with the idea of streamlining, but I don't know that that's one that can be rolled in.
Thank you, Chris. That's a great point. Councillor McKenna.
Yeah, I'm not so sure just bundling things together is an efficient way either. The Lanark County has come up with a long list of action items around housing. I think housing is still a key priority for Smith Falls and the county, and I would not like to take the focus off. So we could rejuvenate the committee, but I'd like to keep it focused on housing, and it's done some really great work. And I'm afraid watering it down would take our eye off the ball. That housing issue isn't going to go away for the next 4 years. So I would not want to, maybe food security and those other matters, but not, I'd like to keep housing separate.
Thank you. Any other comments from the group? Lorraine?
I agree with what Councillor McGuire said. The Accessibility Committee hasn't been formed, hasn't been together for quite a long while, but they've done really good work, and they're trying really hard to look at the ways we can become more accessible, because it's so important. We have an accessible front street, our main street, but you know, one of the things we looked at not that long ago was the beach, Murphy Park. None of it's accessible. So there's a lot of work that committee, I think, is working on. That's important work to continue, and they have a great chair.
Thanks, Lorraine. Wendy?
Yeah, I think accessibility, especially with 2025 and the deadlines coming up there, that the Accessibility Committee should probably stay until after that, all that work gets done. In terms of the Housing Advisory Committee, we've enacted, well, I have enacted or are in the process of enacting what the municipality can do with surrounding housing in terms of changing bylaws, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure that it needs to stay alone, but it is those like racism and discrimination, housing, food security, you know, if those are things that could be managed together. I would leave accessibility on its own though.
Okay. Okay, so the only one I haven't really heard comments on during the open discussion of these three is racism and discrimination. But I am hearing consensus that Housing Advisory Committee in some form needs to have its terms of reference rewrote. So I'm sure staff will work collaboratively with people who have been sitting on that to undertake that. Accessibility Committee, Chris raises a good point. I'll be honest, I forgot it was a statutory committee. You are correct. So perhaps we will leave sleeping dogs lie on that for now. Racism and discrimination, I'll call for a show of hands about whether or not perhaps a reworking of the terms of reference with a blended mandate would be supported by council first, and depending on where that goes, I'll make another suggested motion. So those in favor of working on a revised terms of reference for the Racism and Discrimination Task Force? Okay. Okay, so Nadine, I'll look to you to follow up with the staff or council lead rather on that committee and bring forward a recommendation for how to move forward with that committee. Okay, we're officially halfway through. Yes, Nadine.
I just wanted to confirm the action item for that list. So we have received direction from council to cut the Transportation Advisory Committee as well as the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Those are the only two that have been cut. And I just wanted to confirm direction. Those members to those committees have been appointed for this term of council. So I just want direction from council. Is that being cut at the end of this term of council, not proceeding to the next term?
Yes.
Is that
I believe,
correct?
I believe so. I think that's the impression that we've all been working under.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thanks for that summary, though. I'll ask for you to do another one when we get to the end of all of this. Council appointments on task force liaisons and committees. The first is the physician recruitment task force. Who's our lead on this? Is this Sean? Oh, Chris. Chris, do you have the full context of when this was developed? Because I believe it was developed quite a few years ago with a very, very specific mandate. Is that something that we're still undertaking?
Yeah, that's a great question, Madam Chair. So the task force has actually been disbanded at this point. A lot of the efforts have been communal because with the First Smith Falls Hospital and neighboring municipalities, I'm pretty sure that we're spending about $10,000 line item in each year's budget on a recruiter. I haven't seen good value out of that over the last few years, and I'd love to see physician recruitment being given to our economic development and tourism office, because I think they're the ones best equipped to introduce people to our community and show them the benefits of our community. And I don't think we're doing the best job of that right now when medical students are coming through when they're training sessions. So it's something that definitely the next council can have a more in-depth conversation on, but there's no one to appoint, so we can take it off the list.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, I understand they haven't been meeting, but it's a very specialized skill set. I don't know about our economic development office taking it on. It's more than just showing people around your town. It's responding to multiple leads and developing those leads. And it's a pretty sophisticated portfolio. And the last person that I'm aware of, I haven't been around, covers from Brockville to Smith Falls to Perth. Like she's doing the work across 3 counties supporting that. And it's a small investment that I think should continue. Whether we have our own task force, I don't think so. I think initially it was broader to serve the central region between Brockville and Carleton Place. So it was Merrickville, Wolford, Westport, Portland, Smith Falls, Perth. So it's there is a role. I think we're in real trouble with and it's beyond just physicians, it's healthcare providers. So I think I hope there's a better plan than what we've got currently coming.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Wendy, I do see your hand, but I'm going to ask a point of clarification. Does anyone have knowledge or context around how this came to be? With Peter's comment about the fact that it was Brockville, Perth, Smith Falls raised an interesting thought in my mind, because my understanding was that it was just our hospital. So in partnership with Perth, that it was the two. But is this the health unit or is it the LIN? Peter?
Yeah, I could give you the long history, but I won't. I was there when it was developed. C.O. Morris was around as well. We had an acute crisis in Smith Falls, and this group was pulled together with the mayors and some of the healthcare providers, and we invested with the LIN to focus on the immediate area. As that immediate crisis passed, there's always a need for hospital recruitment as well as community physicians and nurse practitioners. And so you have to do it in partnership. As it evolved, it included Brockville. They divided we didn't need a full-time recruiter. So between Brockville and Perth Smith Falls, we split the costs and we have a full-time person, but doing 2 different jobs. So it needs to continue. It's not necessarily a municipal responsibility, but municipalities have a role.
Thank you. Wendy?
Just a question though, because I heard Councillor McGuire say that the physician recruitment task force had been disbanded. If it's been disbanded, then there's no need for a council appointee. Although to Councillor McKenna's point, maybe there will be another task force formed. We have a professional recruiter. Apparently we're already working. So I don't see the need for a council appointee to a physician recruitment task force that does no longer exist.
Okay, acknowledged. Perhaps at this point, we'll take it off the list, Nadine. but perhaps give some direction to CAO Morris to continue to kind of keep his feelers out for need for involvement from the town at a political level. Otherwise, it sounds like CAO Morris, you are the staff kind of lead on connectivity around that issue. Is that correct?
Yes, historically I have been. Ms. Crowder took over the portfolio, but I'd just like to make the comment that it was developed in a crisis, and we shouldn't allow another crisis to, before we develop, a response. So I think at the staff level, we can work with the hospitals and our counterparts in Perth to make sure this gets the attention it deserves. We do contribute to 10,000 a year, so we have skin in the game, but the recruiter is not our employee. So I would suggest at this point that staff manage this file and make sure that we're plugged into what's happening on the recruitment front, because the need has not diminished for healthcare workers.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. All right. All those in favor of cutting the need for a council appointee? There we go. Okay. The next two are mine, my committees. One is the Rito Environmental Action League. This is a non-statutory committee, but I will say for context, this is a group that occupies and rents space from the town of Smiths Falls. We are their landlord. They are also instrumental in implementing a number of our environmental initiatives at a corporate level. They also reach out to provide assistance to staff on a technical nature. So I think there's value there. I would also say, though, that over my 4 years of working with Real, I think it's vital to have a member of our staff become a representative for appointment to this board as well. What we've seen in the last 4 years is that there's a number of issues that require staff's immediate attention, and the group seems to have been bounced around across parties. So having a standardization on the staff side about who should be responsible for working collaboratively with Real, I think would be extremely helpful. Are there any questions or comments on that? Councillor McKenna?
I agree with the value, and I would support having a municipal council elected official as long as Real still wants us. I think it's a good liaison. I'm not convinced on the staff liaison at this point, but for sure, council representative there.
Okay, so with that, nodding heads that it will stay. Yes, okay. The second one is the Smiths Falls Community Food Bank. Oh my, in 4 years, I have never been invited to a board meeting. I understand this is standard for the food bank. In discussions with other council members who have previously sat on this board, it is not something that we have ever been invited to physically partake in. I have reached out on numerous occasions to ask if there's any assistance that the food bank needs from council, any updates that they would like to have provided to the public through this forum, and generally the response has been no. They do seem to be fairly good about getting their own messages across as needed, and they do work with other community partners in big ways around fundraising drives. So in my eyes, a role for a council member that does not include a seat at the board table, even in a liaison capacity, does not have any real value to us. And I'd be happy to answer questions. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay, thank you. The next is the Chamber of Commerce. Nadine, is this a statutory role that we have to sit on?
I'll be honest with you, we've always had 2 members appointed to this. Currently, we only have 1. And my understanding is, yes, I don't know that it's statutory, but we've always had 2 members appointed to this committee.
Okay. Is there general consensus to keep a member appointed? Okay. Is there general consensus to drop to 1 member instead of 2? I mixed reviews on that one. Okay. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm open to leaving it flexible. I think right now, Councillor Brennan's doing an excellent job keeping us in the loop. But I think a Municipal Heritage Committee with Councillor Allen and myself, it's been really nice having the two of us, and we're both passionate about it. So if two people were really passionate about it, I wouldn't want to cut one of them off.
Thank you. Okay, general consensus to leave it status quo then? Yes, okay. The next two, I believe we are required to sit on. Oh, sorry, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just if we're taking minutes, do we want to say a minimum of one member and up to two, and just leave it the way so that it gives us the option?
Fair point. Thank you. Yes, it looks like you've got consensus on that.
Okay.
The next two committees, I believe we are required to send appointees to. Sean, is that correct? Yes. Okay. They are the Community Service Committee and the Corporate Services Committee of Lanark County. So we'll leave those ones as is. Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark District Health Unit. Is this a committee that we have to send an appointee to? Yep. Okay. So it stays. Perth Smith Falls District Hospital Board. We have had two for this term, Sean and myself, although I'll be honest, Sean usually takes the lion's share of the work on this. Sean, was there a requirement for us to appoint two, or you just humored me in allowing me to attend?
I think it was an opportunity for an alternate. Make sure we always have representation if I wasn't able to make it. But it's important. I think we're somewhat privileged that we have representation on our board. Many have that connection. So I would like to see it continue. I think there's great value with it.
Thank you. Any objection to that? Uh-oh. Okay. Yes, Councillor McKenna.
It's not an objection, Madam Chair. It's just a point I would make that when you have a multi-site hospital in different municipalities, that's not the case now, but there are times when elected officials representing their community, they need to be reminded that their first goal on that board is to the hospital, not to their community back home. It's the well-being of the institution. And sometimes, not currently, but sometimes municipalities get in the way of the smooth operation because they're saying, don't touch that little program in my community when the greater good of the hospital. So it's tricky. You have to be careful. Some hospitals have gotten away with, gotten rid of municipal representation for that reason. They become too parochial. And I'm not saying that's the case, but I think the benefits far outweigh the downside. So I think it should continue.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's a sentiment that we all share. So it will stay. The next one is Rvca, the Rito Valley Conservation Authority. I believe this is a requirement that we send a posting. Yes, there's one appointment. However, the next one, the Cataractway Trail Management Board, I don't believe is a requirement. Nadine, can you confirm?
No, I don't believe so. It's always been in our best interest though, because we are on the Cataractway Trail. I believe there's been some changes to this board over the years, but I know Councillor Allen has been very active, as well as previous to her, Councillor Don Quinn was previously very active on this board. So perhaps Councillor Allen would have further information with respect to recent meetings.
Councillor Allen?
Yeah, no, I think it's a liaison really. Yeah, like we often meet by phone, especially during COVID, we had Zoom meetings or phone-in meetings. But before that, there's such a distance between us. We usually do that kind of meeting. Once in a while, we'll meet in person, but it's like a shared resource because of the people who are in Kingston that have a lot of money that they're putting into their part of the trail often take the lead because they're very passionate about keeping it beautiful and upgrades and all that sort of thing. But the upside to us being part of it is that once that happens, then we can request, like I've requested more fill being put in where there's ruts, because a lot of our community, a lot of people use it for biking, hiking. You know, it's a win-win because we really only own 2 kilometers of it for Smiths Falls, but I take care of all the way to the golf club. So it's 5 kilometers. And by doing so, the board comes here regularly and takes snow removal away, looks after the tree cutting and taking that away. So it's, to me, it's just a win-win kind of committee, and it's a great trail, and it connects to so many other things. You know, that there's a banding turtle along there that's very at risk. And if you're lucky, you can see it on the stones as you hike along there. So I think it's a really important part of our town.
Thanks, Lorraine. Councilor McGuire, did you have comments or just a thumbs up?
Yeah, it's critical. It's critical park infrastructure for that side of town, and it's important we have a voice at the table. So fully support it.
Thank you. Any objections? I see none. All right, we'll keep it. Next is the Railway Museum Advisory Board. Who's our rep on that right now?
Councillor
Lorraine.
Allen.
Thank you. Lorraine, do you have any context to add for this one?
No, I just think I try to give a report, like we meet regularly, and when we do a report, it's just nice. We just had an event, the Harry Potter event, that brought people in from all over the place. It was really successful. So it's nice for us to be able to have that kind of venue. It's just unique.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna.
I'm in favor of this continuing, and I just hope the next council is lucky enough to get someone like Lorraine, who is such a dynamo around that. So that's going to be a big shoes to fill.
Thank you.
For sure. I understand you were even found in costume this week, handing out candy to small children.
Yes, I was a witch.
So I'm very sorry to have
Hard to
missed
believe,
that.
I know.
She was a great witch.
There you go. The good witch. All right, the next one, the Rito Corridor Landscape Strategy Steering Committee. I'll be honest, I was surprised this is even still a thing. Peter, do you sit on this one?
I would love to sit on it, Madam Chair, but they've never had a meeting. It is a requirement, I think, under the UNESCO declaration that these kind of things continue. I think Parks Canada and some of the planners along the corridor, but the last I heard, Brockville was doing some of the, or Leeds Granville was doing, so no meetings have been held that I've been privy to. And they were trying to renew themselves, the last I heard a couple of years ago, but I've not heard any updates. So I would, don't call us, we'll call you, or I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. I had forgotten that there were two committees, the political heads and then the staffing lead. So you're right. I'm sure Carl is still sitting on this as our staff lead, but we'll leave it on the list and hopefully it stays in abeyance, kind of like it has been until there's something major. The last one is Arts and Culture Council. Lorraine, are you our rep on this one as well?
Yes.
Man, I feel bad for whoever gets your seat in the next election because they are going to be busy. Do you want to provide some context on this one?
Well, again, it was a committee, county committee that started with all of us meeting together, and we had several large workshops, and we held them usually at our arena. And then each of us sort of broke off into our own group and tried to figure out how each of us wanted to work it. Pre-COVID, we were meeting in the town hall and we had about 14 artists that were very enthusiastic, and we had some wonderful, very well attended events. But then with COVID, we've been a small board, and we've just been meeting to look at what we can do when things start being able to open up again. It's the kind of thing that you can't do, just by Zoom. So we're doing a lot of things right now. We're going to do the Fill a Bowl. We're going to do some events at Heritage House. And I have to thank and put a cry out to Lisa and Julia Crowder. They have allowed us, we've been for a very long time just meeting in the town hall in one room that's available or another. And now we meet in the upstairs room at the Heritage House. And of course, that's their art gallery. And so it's a really perfect blending. And we're going to raise money or the board is going to raise money to have a storage area on the property as well. And so that we can do a lot of joint art things, because the Heritage House has had a lot of art shows, and prior to the Arts and Culture Council Board, they kind of were doing that for our community. So having us work together, I think will just make that stronger.
Thank you, Lorraine. Wendy, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think we all value both arts and culture, and increasingly there's a focus on it here in Smiths Falls, but I wonder if staff wouldn't be the better ones, particularly given what's in ECDev and tourism's portfolio now, that maybe perhaps the staff should be the ones that are working most directly with the Arts and Culture Council.
Christopher, I see your hand. I'm going to ask CAO Morris to comment first.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think appointing a political representative impedes in any way staff involvement. There's been more communication lately, certainly around the Arts and Culture Master Plan, and there's a whole litany of initiatives underway. So my personal opinion is that we need both political and staff representation.
Thank you. Christopher, comments?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'd like to see political representation on this one because I'd like to see greater integration and the town empowering this group to really fulfill their full potential. I think of things like the Parks and Rec Master Plan, where we told the recreation side of it was going to have an arts and culture component that didn't. And I think we still need to, there's a long ways to go with this committee. So.
Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of keeping it? Excellent. Okay. Jay, closing remarks. You're muted.
Never done that before. Yeah, great discussion. However, I think that we've ignored option one, which would be to receive this report and seek direction from the new council. So I think that we made some arbitrary decisions here on September 26th. Less than a month away from an election. So if reelected, I'll be bringing this back to the floor for new councillors to weigh in on.
Thank you, Jay. Comments noted. Wendy, I see your hand. I'd like to have Nadine do a summary of our changes first, and then I'll come to you. Not to catch you off guard, Nadine, but can you summarize those that are being cut and those that will see a modified terms of reference?
So as discussed, I'll just go through the minutes here. So we've talked about all of them. Recreation Hall of Fame, our Director Manhire is going to speak with the chair and possible review of the terms of reference for that one. Property standards, it was discussed that that may fall under the planning advisory, and that recommendation will come forward as Director Costello brought forward. That report will come forward probably after the election. The Municipal Drug Strategy Committee, we're going to have Councillor McKenna reach out to the health unit to confirm, a process going forward with that one, and if they have the staff resources to fulfill that. We know that Heritage House Advisory Committee terms of references under review. Going to cut the Transportation Advisory Committee. And jumping down to Municipal Heritage Committee, there was nothing there. We know that that's being reviewed. CIP is coming forward. Actually, next week, there will be a public meeting prior to Committee of the Whole for the Community Improvement Plan. So that'll be coming forward next week. Economic Development Advisory Committee, that one will be cut as well. And then we are looking at a revised terms of reference for the Racism and Discrimination Task Force. And so that will be coming forward. So the two that will be cut from that group, again, Economic Development Advisory Committee, Transportation Advisory Committee, and that is following this current term. So that'll be going forward after this current term. And then the staff and council liaisons to external boards and committees, physician recruitment, that one has been cut as well, or I guess there's no need for that anymore. As Councillor McGuire noted, it's been disbanded. The second one for external is the Smiths Falls Community Food Bank. That would be removed as well. And then the rest, it's been determined that those ones will proceed as normal. I believe that's correct.
Thank you, Nadine. I believe that sounds correct as well. Councillor Alfred had a question, and then I'll call for final consensus from the committee on the action.
Not really a question, Madam Chair, rather a counter to Councillor Brennan. This was hardly arbitrary, but informed by 4 years of experience by all the councillors that are sitting here. So I think it's actually the responsible thing to do to set the stage to make the next council more productive and less burdened by some of the things that are not really necessary. So I see this as a responsible move, and option 2 was the second one presented to us by staff. And so that is the one that we have accomplished tonight. And thank you to staff.
Thank you, Wendy. Absolutely. And of course, the discussion that we had tonight it can change. These committees are appointed at the will and discretion of council. And if a new council comes in and has a prerogative to appoint a new or a different or reestablish an existing committee, then they have every opportunity to do so. So with that, I will ask for a show of hands to move forward with the summary motion as summarized by Deputy Clerk Pennant. Thank you. Direction has been given. With that, I'll ask council very quickly if there's a show of hands. Does anyone feel the need that for a health break before we continue, or would you like me to just continue through the agenda? Show of hands. 3 minutes. I'll give you 3 minutes. You can go pee. Yes? Okay. Thank you for members of the public for staying with us. That was a long one, but we'll be back in exactly 3 minutes. Thank you. All right, we'll give 1 more minute for our council members to return. Perfect. Look at that. 2 minutes flat. Good job, team. All right, moving on. We are still in priority items. Item 8.3, recycling transition to extended producer responsibility and solid waste contract extension report with Director McMahon. Paul, do you want to give us a summary of what this disaster is?
I will, Madam Chair, and I'll try to keep it brief this evening. So as the chair mentioned, this report speaks to our recycling transition to extended producer responsibility, which council should be aware of. You know, the town staff have been working on this arrangement with the province for some time now. If council recalls, CAO Morris brought a report to committee of the whole last August 2021 to extend our contractual arrangements with Glenview Iron and Metal to extend the recycling and waste contracts to the end of 2024. So the couple of recommendations that we have in front of you this evening, the first one is with respect to seeking the passing of a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to enter into an extension agreement with Glenview Iron and Metal for our recycling contract, which is our contract 14-PSG-10 until the end of 2025. It's important to note that you know, the province, along with the producers of recyclables and the the pros, which are producer responsibility organization. So these are businesses that have been established to contract with producers to provide collection, management, and administrative of what has historically been known as our Blue Box program. So the pros will work along with those producers to facilitate curbside collection post 2025. So as of January 1st, 2026, the transition will be fully implemented, and the town will be out of the business of you know, contracting with the likes of GIM for our curbside collection. So that was the first part of the recommendation, and that's a bit of a summary as to why we're seeking that 1-year extension. Further to that, we're seeking to execute a funding agreement with Circular Materials Ontario. So Circular Materials Ontario is a pro, which I defined earlier, to provide financial compensation for all costs associated with the town's Blue Box program from July 2023 through to the end of 2025. So as council will be aware, some time ago, the town of Smith Falls opted to transition, or start the transition, if you will, July 1st, 2023. So that's this coming July. So we'll be well into the program, and by the end of 2025, we'll be fully transitioned, albeit we need to facilitate and manage our contracts in this interim period. So that kind of leads to the next recommendation, which is to extend our existing waste curbside collection waste program, as well as our container contract that we have with Glenview Iron and Metal. So you may ask, you know, what containers do we have around town? And containers are known commonly as dumpsters for our multi-residential units around town, as well as our facilities, you know, i.e. the arena. We have some here at Town Hall and at Public Works and so on and so forth. So again, we're looking at extending that, those 2 solid waste contracts with GIM to the end of 2025 as well. The town feels as though there's some synergies to keep everything kind of melded into to get us through to the end of 2025. I don't believe it makes a whole lot of sense to you know, keep the current arrangement till the end of 2024 with Glenview and Iron and Metal, and then go out for waste collection contract at the end of 2024, for the main reason that you know, this is somewhat speculative, but the pros may be interested in keeping GIM or Glenview Iron and Metal on contract for their recycling collection post 2025. And it's very expensive for a collection contractor to purchase vehicles, waste collection vehicles. So we feel that the town would be better suited to have all of these contracts kind of dovetail in together to get us to the end of 2025, and then we fully transition. We're out of the curbside collection of recycling business, and we'd be better poised, I think, at that point to put out a contract for waste collection services. So with that, I kind of summarized a lot of what's in the report. I'd be happy through the chair to take any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to speak in favor of the recommendation and of the staff report, I think it also does one other thing, Director McMahon, is it in the off chance that January 1st, 2026 date, things aren't quite ready for that transition, but I'm sure they will be. We have a supplier who we've been dealing with in good faith that we could probably get a few more months out of if we had to. So I'm sure that won't happen, but I'm very supportive of your recommendations.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, or just thumbs up? Thumbs up. Thanks, Paul. All the best in the transition. I don't think this is going to be an easy one, but I'll keep my fingers crossed for you and every other director of public works in Ontario. Moving right along, we have the August budget monitoring report with Director Koziel. Janet, do you want to provide a summary?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here this evening to provide a high-level update after completing August budget monitoring. As indicated in my report, we're currently projecting an overall surplus of about 59,000. The breakdown of that is water and distribution is in a deficit position of about 117,000, wastewater a surplus of 10,000, and tax supported a surplus of 166. So due to the current volatile economic climate, staff will continue to monitor and report to council any potential financial impact this may have. Our current average CPI up to the end of August is 7.1. The overall average in 2021 was only 4.2. So these interim reports are provided to council to ensure accountability and adherence to our approved annual budget. So if you had any questions on the reports or the supporting documents, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Janet. Questions? No? Oh, Janet, I'm going to miss your budget reports. I won't lie. Thanks very much once again. Don't go anywhere though, because your next report is the section 357 request for reductions report. Can you give a summary of that, please?
Certainly. So this does pertain to requests for reductions, in which we had two. So taxpayers may make application under section 357 for a tax reduction due to various changes that have occurred to their properties, such as a change of use, demolition, etc. These applications must be received prior to February 28th, the following year after that the application is being made. The municipality then forwards this application to MPAC for its review of the factual information, and if required, will conduct an inspection of the property. MPAC's response and the municipal tax applications are then returned to the municipality for council's decision regarding any tax adjustments. And applications under these sections must be heard by council prior to the end of September. So the details of these requests for reductions are outlined in my report, and they total approximately 8,000. And our 2022 budget does consist of, does accommodate these write-offs for these refunds. So if you had any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Nope. Once again, thanks for a very thorough report, Janet. We love it. So efficient. Moving right along, we have our procedural bylaw, hopefully the final draft that we receive. Carrie, would you like to give a presentation?
Certainly. So I drafted the report last week for all of you to review. So made some final tweaks to the bylaw. One that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention was I did add a clause that people must be, or candidates or elected officials must be present for the inaugural meeting of council. This is just because your presence is required for signing and taking of the oath. Added the land acknowledgement to the agendas as well as definitions. Added, and this was something that Councillor McGuire asked for some clarity about committees boards, to try to get some wording consistent there using committees of council. Added the definition. And what else did we do here? Just did some minor changes regarding formatting and updating the schedules. So I bring the consolidated bylaw to all of you for your final review and answer any questions you may have. In the report, I also updated the proposed timeline with the final discussion this evening on the bylaw. We're looking at getting out notice to the public ASAP, so that we're meeting the 10-day window for notice to the public, with final presentation to council on October 11th, which would be, we'd have to have a special council meeting that evening for adoption of the bylaw. And that would be before this term ends. So I'm happy to take any questions or if council has any final comments about the bylaw.
Thank you, Carrie. Questions or comments? We'll start with Councillor McGuire, followed by Councillor Alfred.
Thanks, Director Costello. This is the best one yet. No, it's great to see. It's a big achievement. Congratulations. One comment or question more than anything, because I just want to know how to handle it. In the motions table for recess under the moved and seconded column, it says yes, accepted. And I just wanted to understand that one. Yeah.
There'll be an in-depth training, Councillor McGuire, with the new council, not just on the procedural bylaw, but on motions as well. That table is kind of a quick reference guide, but there'll be a more in-depth training. It's not going to throw everybody to the wolves. And in all honesty, it's really procedural bylaw. There's nothing new or made up in that table, but certainly there'll be a more in-depth review of motions when we do the training component.
And last comment on it, if we could make the PDF forms fillable, I think that would be awesome. So,
oh, no problem.
Yeah, congratulations, great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Alfred, followed by Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did, Director Costello, 9.7 says council motions shall be provided in writing and shall contain the signatures of the mover and the seconder. If we are operating virtually, how will that work?
The same format that we do right now. If we're operating virtually and we have a seconder mover, it would be simply on the motion, or it'd be in the minutes of who was attending virtually and who was attending in person. So that would be reflected in the minutes.
But it wouldn't contain signatures.
No, there would be just a note on it that they participated electronically.
Okay, so I suggest perhaps if virtual is how we're going, maybe amend that to say that electronic signatures, or there will be noted, or whatever.
That's 9.7.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted.
And I'm going to return again to the hybrid meeting option and setting no limitations on attendance at that. We've all had time to think about that and discuss it. I've looked at several of the table that Carrie gave us in August, I think it was. It runs the gamut of what other councils are doing. I noted too that Rito Lakes, which is one of the closest ones, is debating now whether 5 is enough based on a request from one of the councillors. And so they have limitations. There are many that do have limitations. And I'm not suggesting that it can be an annual limitation or a term limitation, but I would suggest, again, for numerous reasons, not the least of which, if we were to have to declare emergency and the mayor is not here to act as the head of council, how does that fall out? And do we have rules then that if the mayor is away, the acting mayor cannot be? It's still, I'm very uncomfortable with having no limits on virtual participation. And I hope that perhaps some of my colleagues have given it a sober second thought since our last discussion.
Thank you. Okay, I think your first point was a question to Director Costello. Would you like to respond?
I guess I'd asked when Councillor after she could repeat the question. I was kind of taking that was kind of asking for council to debate.
Yeah, there's no real question, Madam Chair. If it appeared one, I didn't mean that. The question is actually back to council, to my colleagues, to once again, after sober second thought, consider limitations on virtual attendance.
Thank you. Okay, perhaps we'll park that for a second. I'll let all of council have comments first, and then we'll come back to that, Wendy. Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I like it as it is. I mean, let me see, 5 reports to council. In my 12 years as a councillor, I don't think staff have worked harder on a bylaw in my time. So I fully support it. And congratulations, Carrie and staff. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Any other questions or comments from council before we evaluate options for virtual meetings again? Seeing none. Okay. I'll call for a show of hands. Those supportive of leaving the bylaw as is. We'll acknowledge, of course, that that bylaw is within our purview to change at any time, and should it become a matter for future council to debate and discuss imposing a limitation, they may do so at that time. But all those in favor leaving the bylaw as currently drafted by the Director of Corporate Services. Okay, that one dies. So with that, I will ask perhaps Councillor Alfred, because you were up first with this one. What would you suggest us amending the bylaw to read?
Well, again, in the case, if I just use one of the closest examples, Rito Lakes has 5 in a calendar year. There are others that some to hold virtual meetings, the council has to be asked permission. It has to go to a vote every time. Carlton Place had no hybrid in place at the time that Carrie produced her report. Rito Lakes has 5 in a calendar year. Huntsville has up to 3 in a 12-month period. I was trying to pick similar people who would be in the same population. And Blue Mountain has 4 semi-annually, but no more than 3 people can be joining virtually at a time. So it is all over the place. I would suggest that we start with, something 5, 6 in a calendar year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify that we're just talking about council or committee of the whole. We're talking about all the committees.
No, the committees they're fine to go ahead and should. It's better for them if they do. But I will reiterate that I believe our population, our voters, our residents expect their leaders to not attend virtually for 12 months of the year for 4 years, which is what this opens the door to.
So if we're just talking about that, just to keep it simple, I would just say 50% and it'd be 50-50. Just might make somebody's got to keep track of this, and I don't want to burden people. So if it's just 50%, just to throw it out.
Okay. I see Sean's hand, and then I hear 2 recommendations. So Sean, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, tough one, because I think if we simply look at the group we've worked with here, obviously there's no concern, but I think we have to consider the possibilities of someone could become a member of council, potentially still own property in town and live in some other part of the country and still participate virtually for years. And the next opportunity the community would have with the next election to determine whether or not they're doing their job fairly. So I appreciate Councillor Wolf for bringing this forward, but considering we have usually 48 either committee of the whole or council meetings in a year, sometimes more, maybe it's wrong, but I would be in line with what Councillor McKenna said, or 25%, no more than 25% of meetings a year that you would miss. That would be about 12, and it could be spread out over a year or all at once. Understanding people have circumstances in life that can come into play that could impact their ability to be in the room with other people, and we know that this working virtually, while not ideal, it functions. I think we've made a lot of business over the last couple of years while working in an environment which we would never have contemplated before. So I'll throw out 25%. or attendance at 75%, missing no more than 25%.
Okay, thank you. I see consensus from Councillor McKenna on that. I'll ask for comments from Councillor McGuire. I see consensus as well from Lorraine. And then Carrie, I acknowledge your hand as well. Chris?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't support creating rules for the sake of creating rules. I think any rule we create takes staff time to enforce. Staff are busy, and this is a problem that doesn't exist. I think we have to remember why we're here. We're here because we're voted in by the electorate. If the electorate want to put in somebody that wants to live in Florida 12 months of the year and show up to the meeting, as much as I wouldn't like it, that's the right of the people to decide. It's not something that we need to, I think, nitpick here. I can think of a million exceptions of why somebody might need to attend virtually. And there's good reasons and there's bad reasons, but I think one of the most important things that came up in the first time we had this discussion was how it made the meetings more accessible to people that had other things going on, family life, other working commitments. You know, we're looking at in our committees of having diversity and inclusion and equity, and then by putting restrictions on this, I feel like we're unnecessarily limiting that without good case studies to prove why it's necessary. So I support leaving it open for now, revisiting it if it becomes a problem, but right now I don't see a problem to solve. So.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. Carrie, you had your hand up, and then I'll speak to the issue.
Just a note, it's going to be difficult to put a percentage on something because we don't know the number of meetings we're going to have. We can guesstimate the number of meetings we're going to have just based on the calendar and the number of Mondays we have, and reducing the fifth Mondays, whatever the case may be. But as you all know, there's many special meetings that pop up, or on the off chance that we'd have an emergency meeting. So putting a percentage on it may not be the easiest way to plan. It would be probably the most difficult way to plan for it, because we really don't know the number of meetings we're going to have annually.
Thank you, Carrie. That was actually the point I was going to raise, was that, it's not uncommon for us to add or drop meetings, particularly at the end of the year. Councillor Brennan, I do see your hand, but I'm going to finish my point if you don't mind. First of all, I'm in favor of leaving it as is. I think, as Councillor McGuire said, and I've stated consistently every time we debate this, having the option of participating electronically has made participating in council as a working mom significantly easier, albeit sometimes more distracting than others. I would like it to be less so. But I think having the option to have that virtual meeting at any time would be helpful. The other point I'll raise is that, often when we look at our meeting schedule, it's not uncommon for us to have back-to-back meetings. So I think when we write this, there should be clarity about, are you using up your meeting away virtually if you have to participate in committee of the whole and a council meeting? Does that count as 2 missed meetings, or is that 1 meeting because it's on a single day? I think, without getting the semantics, I think there's an awful lot of management that comes with this that we're not anticipating at this point. So until we see what the rollout looks like as currently drafted, I wouldn't be supportive of making any changes from what Director Costello has presented. Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I just read an article today, and I think the CBC put it out about municipal candidates, how few there are. And they used the case in point, Drummond North Elmsley next door to us, who, the mayor's been acclaimed, I don't know how many times, but, the point was made that, if people in the last 2 years have utilized this. I don't think that that being virtual for any period of time, of course, no one's going to go away and live for 12 months of the year somewhere else. I mean, we've been virtual for over 2 years now. And Nikki, you made the point that I was going to make about, a young mother or encouraging people to seek office. So I'm not for any limits. I think that, if someone's away and you've got a limit on, you can't participate because we have a limit. Well, we have the technology that they can participate. So I don't know why you want to be punitive of someone that happens not to be there. We moved a council meeting a few years ago because Lorraine, you broke your ankle, remember? And we went down to the Kinsman Center to do it. You could have done it virtually. No, I think it's punitive on someone that's away, happens to be away. No one around this table is going to be vacant forever. So I don't support changing it.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Okay, with that, I'll circle back to Mayor Pankow, because I think your suggestion was the one that had the most amount of support from other members of council. But do you want to continue to word it that it's a 25% threshold, or would you like to make an amendment to a set meeting number?
No, I appreciate the comments from Director Costello. I think a percentage, it could be problematic. It makes it much more difficult to track. So, I mean, based on what I was thinking at the time, at 25% being about 12 meetings a year. But I appreciate some of the comments made, some of the challenges that could exist for some candidates. I'm more worried about the renegade who gets elected and potentially doesn't participate and potentially moves away and decides to still be there. As for day-to-day functioning, I'm comfortable knowing that people can work and function virtually. More a matter of their overall commitment, which could be absent if they were no longer part of our community. So I'm not sure what the right number would be. And if I said 12, does that potentially cause an issue for some people? It may, especially if you did have someone like Nikki, like yourself. I mean, the ability for you to serve your role and fulfill your duties as councillor while having two little guys run probably makes life much easier, the fact that you were able to do it from home than if you had to physically come into the council chambers every single week. So it's a matter of having a method to curb abuse or potential abuse while respecting the flexibility that some candidates may want. So I don't know. I don't know the right number. I don't have a sense, unless there's obviously, as Councillor McGuire had mentioned, his hand up again, the ability to potentially change procedural bylaw down the road to deal with a situation at the time may seem. I guess maybe Director Costello can comment on that and a future council's ability to actually make that decision if they felt there was a situation that had to be dealt with.
So I was just thinking, maybe there's something Councillor McGuire said that struck me about, maybe council, if they're comfortable passing the bylaw as it's written, that it's maybe something that the new council can visit a year from them taking their oath to see if it's working for them. We can make sure the technology is working for us. Maybe that's one way to kind of come to a nice compromise in 1 year time to revisit the hybrid meeting to see if it's working as it should be. I don't want to lead the discussion. I want council to kind of make this decision on their own, but that might be a nice way for council to still have the bylaw passed under their when they're before their term expires, but at the same time give the new council some of the flexibility to mend the bylaw as they deem fit when they've got a year under their belt.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
If I can finish my thought then, Madam Chair, I'm going to fall back to Councillor McKennan's original suggestion. So he was basically probably 6 months, or so if someone missed 25 meetings in a year, I think that would be more than that would be excessive. I'll just throw a number out there.
Okay, so to be clear, sorry, and I do see you, Wendy. To be clear, Mayor Pankow, what you're suggesting is that we amend the procedural bylaw to impose a limit of no more than 25 occurrences of council or committee of the whole missed in any one calendar year. Is that correct?
Yeah, in-person participation, no more. Yeah, so not not miss altogether, of course, because they'd be participating, but.
Okay, I'll ask Madam Clerks both if they've got that.
Just
reasonably
wanted to
captured.
clarify that. So I put no more than 25 occurrence of committee of the whole or council.
Yes.
So at one evening, if we had a special meeting and a regular meeting, a special meeting of council and a regular committee meeting, it would be considered 2 misses. That's how I've written it so far. So if that's what's on the table, that's what I have written.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Wendy?
Just, yes, I could live with that. I just want to go back to a comment Councillor McGuire made in that there is no problem. The last thing that you want to be doing is trying to react when you have one. Then it sets the council up that is trying to change a bylaw in response to abuse. That's a very untenable position to place future councillors in. So I would rather have some rule in place now with this and not have to, and be able to go to the book to be able to have staff or the mayor or the councils in the future go, well, here, this is the rule. I'm not making it up. It's in place. I've seen that. Some of us will have lived that experience where there isn't a rule or a procedure or a process in advance, and then you set up a very untenable position for the people who have to react to it. So that would be my answer to Councillor McGuire's comment. But I could live with what Councillor McKenna and Mayor Panko are suggesting. I could live with that.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. I'm going to go to Councillor Brennan for comments, and then I'll call for a show of hands in support of the motion as worded by Mayor Panko.
Yeah, just a little bit like clear as mud right now. So was the number 25? So you can participate. So you're saying you can participate in 25 hybrid meetings, or I'm not sure, because I know provincially the legislation says you can't miss more than 3 months in a row. So I'm just not clear of what we're proposing here.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Director Costello to step in and clarify whether or not virtual participation constitutes a missed meeting. My understanding is that it does not.
No, it does not.
Thank you.
So
is that clear?
What's the 25 then? I'm not sure what the 25 is.
Okay, so the 25 would be 25 meetings conducted virtually. So you are not in attendance in the council chambers when all of council is to be in attendance in council chambers.
So you can attend 25 virtual meetings only?
Yes.
And the 26th, you're marked absent?
Correct.
Well, I think that's, anyway, I think I'm in the minority, but the 26th meeting, if it ever happened, I mean, if, you know, then you're out of luck, right? And although you could do it, you're not allowed to. So I'm not with that.
Yes, fair point, Councillor Brennan. I hope that clarifies what the intent of the motion was. I mean, certainly, as we've said previously tonight, I mean, there's always exceptions to the bylaw that can be made by council at that time. If a member wanted to seek a concession, then council could consider that. But as the motion is drafted tonight, your 26th meeting would constitute an absence. I'll go to Councillor McGuire, and then I'll go to Councillor McKenna, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, and I'm still not clear whether it's 25, as you say, if we have a council and a cow on the same night, is that count towards 2?
Yes.
So this whole percentage thing just isn't working the more we talk it out. And what I'm thinking about as we have this debate is the night that I think, was it Owen that came and he was sick, so he couldn't go to the babysitter, so he comes to the council meeting and he's hanging out under the desk having a nap. Like, we shouldn't be putting people in a position where that's what they have to do. And I think with working from home, and I think we all have a new understanding of what being healthy means. And, you know, if you've got a cold, you're going to stay home now. And I don't know if I know I didn't treat it the same way before, I don't want to put any pressure on anyone that might not be feeling 100%, and for whatever reason they burn through their 25, whether they're good reasons or bad reasons, to say no, you can't log in. Now I look at past councils and you know, and I look at myself and weeks that I haven't had a chance, there's a report I haven't had a chance to read before the meeting. I would much rather have somebody participating virtually that's read all the reports and ready to engage actively and participate in the meeting with their full enthusiasm than somebody that shows up in person that hasn't read the report. This talk about not showing up to meetings, it's disingenuous to what we're actually proposing here. What we're proposing is how you show up. It's not whether or not you show up, and it's not about whether or not you show up prepared. So I think there's going to be enough intangible benefits of showing up in person that's going to be an incentive on its own. It's those one-on-one conversations before and after the meeting. It's those being able to see the room, because no matter how the camera's set up, we're not going to be able to see each other the way we can when everybody's got their individual camera on them. There's going to be all kinds of benefits of the beautiful new accessible space that's being built at the town hall that we're going to want to go in and attend there. And I see a lot of potential negatives. I don't see the positives. And if there's ever somebody that isn't participating in council, there's a whole other set of rules to deal with that for not showing up. So for me, I'm very firm on leaving it as it is. I like Director Costello's idea to revisit in a year, but we don't know what we're dealing with right now because we've never lived it yet. So we're speculating.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, closing thoughts from you, and then I'll call the vote.
No, I appreciate Councillor McGuire's input for sure. I understand it. What I was getting at by supporting something like this was where there is meeting face to face in a room together, making tough decisions. There's a lot more that goes on in a room. We know this. The interpersonal relationships, the talk before the meetings, the talk after the meetings, the body language, those are critical skills. So I was trying to find, how do you get all those benefits back into a room while at the same time accommodate those people who can't make every meeting, and either through work or illness or whatever, and try to find just a compromise around that. So the benefits for meeting face to face and building a team around this council far outweighs some minor inconveniences or rushing to work. So we're just trying to find a compromise. So that's why I was promoting some kind of a number, not a percentage. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to call the vote. So the suggestion on the table is that the procedural bylaw be amended to permit 25 meetings a year per calendar year to be conducted by the membership virtually. In all other cases, you would be expected to be present physically in the council chambers. So with that, I'll ask for a show of hands in favor of the amended motion. 4, that carries. Okay. I'm going to make a second request in a show of hands. We have discussed whether or not it merits having this debated and reconsidered and evaluated after a year. Is there support from council to ask Carrie to come back with a report to evaluate this option 1 year? And Carrie, I would suggest that we do it 1 year following the resuming of in-person meetings in our new council chambers, so that you get a full year of kind of measurable impact. Is there support from council to have it revisited? 2? No. Okay, that's that. Thank you, council. Oh, Carrie, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify the action. I saw 4 hands up for the 25 meetings. Was there 5 hands up? I only saw 4.
No, I only saw 4 as well. I believe it was Mayor Pankow, Councillor Alfred, Councillor McKenna, and Councillor Allen.
Perfect, thank you.
This, of course, will come forward, I assume, for a recorded vote when it gets to council, but this is the straw vote at committee of the whole to move this forward for council debate. Councillor McKenna.
Madam Chair, I didn't have any issue with your suggestion to come back in a year, but I couldn't support it because I was giving direction to the next council, and that was the only reason I didn't. I'm sure it'll come back up, or staff might want to bring it up in evaluation. We're only 2 years trying this model of using this. There's so much research and so much going on. It'll continue to evolve, and we'll get better at it. So it's very early days, that's all.
Fair enough. Thank you. All right. With no other comments on that one, Carrie, I do want to sincerely thank you for your work on this project. For those of you who have not been following this process as vigorously as we on council have, this has been a, I don't know, 18, 24-month project. I mean, you have lived and bled for this document, and I think everybody on council sincerely appreciates your efforts, and hopefully following its adoption at council, perhaps Malcolm gives you a day off to recuperate. Councillor Alfred.
You put that motion on the floor, Councillor Dwyer.
Yeah, gladly.
Yes, I echo everything Councillor Dwyer had, but it's another example of why these things should not be left untended for years and years, and in some cases decades. So I hope with the next council we can come to some work plan that doesn't put this kind of pressure on our staff in the future.
Hear, hear. I'll let Malcolm take over from there. Moving on, Carrie, you're relieved for the night.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Malcolm, you're the last report. It's the strategic plan monitoring report. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So we'll keep this one high level. This is the 7th update during this term of council on our strategic plan progress. As committee members know all too well, we have 6 strategic priorities and 41 initiatives to achieve those priorities. So we've been updating every 6 months. Normally this report would come forward in November, but because of the election, we accelerated it to have this discussion. So keeping a high level, we have at this point 51% of the initiatives have been completed in their entirety. We have about 46% that are in progress, and I would point out a few of those are very large projects. Beckwith Street being one, Town Hall being the other, and Town Square being the third. All 3 of those are actively underway, and I can assure you it was a beehive of activity around Town Hall today. We had a lot of work going on to finish these projects up. So by the end of your term of council, they will be finished, which will put you at 64% complete, at least. The rest are in progress and are underway. So I think in context of the some of the distractions we've had, certainly with COVID, I would suggest and submit to you that's a very successful strategic plan implementation. So priority 1 is housing. The big one there was the DC bylaw that was approved. It went into effect in June. Other than that, we've accomplished all of the other housing initiatives. Priority 2 is quality of life. The big one there was the Parks and Rec Master Plan that was approved earlier this year over the summer. We have new play structures going in, which was one of the initiatives. And we planted trees. We have a giveaway this Wednesday. People can pick up spruce trees, and we'll even have information on how to plant them and care for them. So our tree canopy is underway. The transportation, the big one there, of course, is Beckwith, and the asphalt went in today, the base course, so it's looking much more like a street. We'll be ready for Saturday's celebration. So that one's proceeding as planned. We do have a lot of activity going on with pedestrian improvement, certainly the Old Slies pedestrian improvement. We have a plan for that. We're just doing some design, and we'll bring that back to the new council as part of the budget. We also have a plan that we've been working with Canopy Growth to look at a better pedestrian crossing plan on their campus. So we'll be bringing that forward as well for approval and funding. Into priority 4, the big one there was the former water treatment plant. As you know, it was awarded. We're going to be starting negotiations in earnest very, very shortly with the preferred proponent. The Center Street redevelopment is the other one. As Julia mentioned earlier, it closed Friday, and we hope to have a recommendation to you in the next 2 weeks to award the work. Tourism, we finished them all except for the central hub for the hiking trails. That one needs some more stakeholder involvement. And the last one, of course, is the town hall project I mentioned earlier. Both of those are certainly underway right now in a very real way. The work on the town square will likely start next week. The focus this week is getting Beckwith in shape to have the Back on Beckwith celebration on Saturday. So throughout the month of October, we'll see tremendous progress on the town square project. Other than that, what I would like to point out is this council is responsible for securing $9.9 million in funding from the federal and provincial levels of government. That's a tremendous accomplishment and certainly has advanced our capacity to move these projects forward. Without that money, obviously we wouldn't have gone as far as we have. So I will leave it at that, Madam Chair, and answer any questions that might come up.
Thank you. Okay, I see a show of hands. We'll start with Councillor McKenna, followed by Councillor Alfred, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, Council will take some of the credit, but having said that, to describe, and I know you were tongue-in-cheek describing COVID as a minor distraction, it was unprecedented. And in spite of that, Team Smith Falls, all those 100+ employees did an amazing job, from police to Parks and Rec to the town hall staff, public works to water and wastewater, to the child development centers. All of those people and put their personal lives, you know, they had all of that to deal with, and they still accomplished all of this work. And it was the staff who did all of this. And I just can't say enough, CEO Morris, about you and your team. And I've been very proud when we set that strategic plan. I thought it was aspirational, but to see this kind of progress, I'm just over the moon, and want to congratulate you and all the employees and our federal and provincial funders who helped us out along the way. Absolutely. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Wendy?
I could not say it better than Councillor McKenna has, so I won't even try. There was one thing I didn't see in the transportation network that was mentioned, and that were the improvements that at Abbott Street and Lombard. That has been a real boon to traffic flow all around town. So other than that, I'm not even gonna go any further. Councillor McKenna said it all. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? None, really, eh? Holy, can you tell it's been a long night? Malcolm, good work. We appreciate the hard work. I will say I'm still a little burnt that putting goats in as part of our lawn care maintenance budget did not make it into the strat plan. I feel like that was low hanging fruit and we could have accomplished it. But, you know, thank you, Art. Maybe whoever's elected next time can make sure that the goats get represented. In the meantime, Malcolm, the only question I have for you is there any advice that you would give future members of council before drafting a strategic plan? I think Peter talked about tonight that we were pretty glass half full outlookers at the beginning of this, and I think that showed perhaps our level of experience at the time. What advice would you give candidate members for council and those that have the luck of being elected when they do their next strategic plan?
Well, that's a great question. So based on our experience, a couple things. Firstly, don't shy away from being audacious and setting those stretch goals. That's the only way we test ourselves and improve and push forward. So I think we can't not shoot for the stars, right? And so I think this council did that, and the success, I think, it's documented. The other thing I think that we may have underestimated was those projects that we don't have full control over, where we're relying on partners, we need to be realistic about how quickly we can move forward with some of those initiatives. So I think being realistic about those, but setting stretch goals should always be the objective, and monitor closely, and you know, keep it to a manageable number. It's sometimes misleading when we put a small goal in with a very large one like Beckwith Street. I mean, the amount of effort for Beckwith Street compared to some of the smaller ones is not really comparable. So, you know, focusing on the numbers, not so much just what it is you want your town to look like after 4 years. That's ultimately what this is about. And so we will be bringing forward, we'll strongly be encouraging the next council to spend time thinking strategically early in their term. And if they're agreeable, we'll go through a similar process and come up with equally important stretch goals next time around. So thank you to council for your support. I know some councils aren't supportive of a strategic direction. This one was, and it paid off. And we're meeting with staff tomorrow, so I will certainly pass on your acknowledgement of the entire staff team's efforts to get this stuff done. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, council, we've reached the end of our evening at a record 7:30, I'll say. I'm impressed we're out before 8, I'll be honest. Moving on, unless anybody's going to add something to the agenda tonight, which I hope not, we'll move into the adjournment. Recommended motion that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 7:30 on the nose and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council, which I will not be chairing. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Brennan. Everybody, all in favor?